and Islam on the basis that only Muslims will, because there are good Muslims and there are bad Muslims, just as there are good Christians and bad Christians, good Jews, bad Jews, good Hindus, bad Hindus, good everybody, bad everybody. But my understanding of Islam, and this is how I've grown up understanding it, and I'm glad this is what I'm imparting to the next generation, is that in order to be close to God, in order to enter heaven, in order to benefit from that, you have to be a good person first and foremost, so that you can be a Christian, and your actions as a good or bad Christian will be judged on your goodness or your badness, not on the fact that you believe Jesus was the Son of God. I don't think that is going to exclude you from the grace of God, of God's mercy and compassion. And we have to remember also that the two words that are in every chapter of the Quran, and possibly on every page as well, is that God is merciful and compassionate, merciful and compassionate, merciful and compassionate. These are repeated often. We forget that. We forget the mercy and compassion. That doesn't mean to say do what you want because you think God is going to be merciful and compassionate. It's the same as saying, do what you want and you'll eventually be forgiven. No, that's not what either the Christians are saying when they talk about the mercy of God. It's not what the Muslims are saying. But what I think Islam is saying, that Allah, God, is beyond, whatever your take on God, is beyond Christianity, is beyond Judaism, is beyond Islam, is actually above all of that. Just like, no, I won't make that. I was going to make the comparison with the Queen being above politics, but I don't think that's an appropriate comparison. But God is above all of this. And God, we don't know the ultimate wisdom of God. We don't know the intention. We don't know what God will how he will judge us. Okay? What we know is that he will judge us. But ultimately, I don't think it's going to be based on the fact that, you are Muslim. What if you're a Muslim and you're a Yazidi type of Muslim who has done nothing but drink and womanize and be evil? You're still calling yourself a Muslim. You're still a Muslim leader. You still legitimized yourself on the basis of that. We can see many dictators today doing the same thing, calling themselves Muslims, but actually doing the opposite. And yet you're telling me, as a believing Muslim, as a Shia who believes in the Shia tradition, where it's incumbent upon us, we're still just out of the Chahel of Muharram, where Imam Hussein said that you are duty bound to oppose this kind of rulership, and if they're claiming to be Muslims on top of that, you're even more duty bound to oppose them. You're telling me that after all those messages and the fundamental meaning of Islam for humanity, which is universal, a Muslim is still going to go to heaven more than a Christian? Absolutely not. So I think that Islam is much more universal than that. It is not exclusivist. For me, the message of Islam is a very inclusivist message, and that it's one that will judge people on their behaviors and not on the many rivers that flow into the one sea, as it were, that I think are absolutely to be celebrated. I think they're to be, we must remember this as Muslims, that we must not, especially if we believe Muhammad is the seal of the Prophet, we must not condemn others because they have a different take on their God, if you like, in inverted commas, because we believe God is one. There is only one God, and so everybody's belief to me is legitimate, as long as they don't hurt anybody, and as long as they don't as long as they don't hurt anybody. Right. That's all. That's that's my view on it.
Right. Never was seen the Prophet himself was disrespectful in any way to any religions. I mean,
he was not.
Yeah, he was not.
His immediate family were not. If you look at, we believe that, and there's a lot of misunderstanding about the Shia belief, but of course we believe the Prophet was the seal of the prophets, he was the final prophet. But we follow him through the example of his family, which is the most pristine example, and I know many non-Shias who believe fundamentally, I talk to them every day, that they say we do follow the Prophet's family, because logically, where else do we go and look at their example? So, to me, if you look at the life of Imam Ali alayhi salam, if you look at the life of Janab Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, if you look at Imam Hassan, Hussein, and the Imams that we believe in, if you actually study historically, not even religiously, their lives, they never spent it condemning Christians or saying that, we need to now make a war against Christians. And by the way, the wars that did occur in those days were based on political alliance. They were, even though the Prophet was involved, they were not religious wars per se. You have to look at the things in context, not in, we oppose you because you believe in different. There's no war that was conducted on the basis of, you believe Jesus was Son of God, we have to therefore fight you. That's a relatively modern phenomenon. That wasn't something that drove the Muslim armies
right.
initially.
Right.
And I fully agree what Kazmi was saying. I mean, in the present day world, exclusivism would not work. If your religious thoughts are exclusive in its nature, people are really going to throw them out. It won't work, because everything, whether your business, whether your politics, whatever you are, societies are becoming more and more inclusive.
More familiar.
More familiar. But I think within Muslim communities, some particular school of thoughts, they have put two layers of protection on communities, which are hugely, extremely dangerous for this whole process of community cohesion that's going on here in the West and everywhere in the world. I will elaborate these two layers of protection in this way. You don't allow your people to go into that process of community cohesion. You advise your people, you encourage your people not to celebrate Christmas, not to celebrate other festivals, don't integrate with the Western women, don't wear the clothes that like they do, don't do these things that they do. So on one hand you protect your communities, but on other hand you also protect your faith, you also protect your religion, you also protect your religious thought in a way that no one other is allowed to adopt your even terminologies. For example, in countries like Pakistan, Ahmadis, they are not allowed to use Muslim terminologies. They can't use word masjid for the place of worship even. So it's quite a highest level of fear that if they will use your terminologies for their personals, for holy persons, if they will use even the word masjid, mosque, for their worshipping place, they are going to hijack Islam. For example, in Malaysia, Christians are forbidden not to use Allah for God.
Wow.
So these are quite different.
As a matter of
If
fact,
I can quickly add to that, actually the Shias also are going through a trial at the moment in Malaysia. They're facing similar persecution.
Yes. So I think these are very important dimensions. Here in the West or here in the UK or in London, we are talking about whether Muslims should celebrate Christmas or not. Many Muslims are celebrating Christmas. They are inviting their Christian brothers and sisters. They are inviting people from the wider society, come and celebrate Christmas with us. This is our initiative, and Christmas is a festival of festivity. They are enjoying the life without compromising on their Islamic fundamental faiths and elements. But in other parts of the world, you can see these horrible pictures. Religion or Muslim communities are protected with two layers. On one hand, they are not allowed to celebrate Christmas or to celebrate festival of people of other faiths, but on other hand, people of other faiths are not allowed to enjoy, or they are not allowed to use even, or even they are not allowed to experience the beauty of Islam. So this is I think these two layers of protection needs to be challenged.
Very good point. Very good point.
Although I mean, in terms of like terminologies, we tend to see within the Arab churches they use the word Allah. Most of the time.
And they have been using the word Allah before the birth of Prophet Islam.
Right.
Prophet of Islam. So this is and then in their liturgy, in their hymns, in their poems, in their books, and in Urdu, Arabic translation of Bible, the word Allah is used instead of word God, Theos.
Same applies within the Persian Christian churches, where they use the word Khuda, for example.
Khuda and Khudawan,
Yeah. So I mean, it's quite extreme elements and extreme factors that we tend to see, which certainly have some sort of political agenda.
I think this is extremism within the dogmas and dogmatic and systematic theology.
Right.
When you kidnap God.
Yes, I was going to say that when you trademark him.
Yes.
When you trademark God.
This is our terminology, and only we can use that.
Yeah, but it's it's quite interesting, and this I think leads to a different discussion in a way. But I would just like to put it in here that we have grown up. And I talk as somebody who's grown up here in the UK, of course. So you'll identify with this, because Christians say the same thing. That we've grown up with a white, blue-eyed Jesus, whereas we forget that Christianity's origins are in Palestine. So he was not a Norwegian or a Scottish
Norwegian,
guy,
yeah.
and even down to things like that we understand Christmas from the commercial side. Santa Claus, for example, was originally, if my history is correct, was originally, if not a Dutch incarnation, he was certainly Turkish. The original Father Christmas that the Coca-Cola company bases their Santa Claus on. The red with the white face, the very white sort of face with the white beard and the red nose, and fat and beaming and all the rest of it. He is a commercial invention, to sell a particular soft drink back in the 1920s and 30s. It had nothing to do with Jesus, and unfortunately, because we live in the age of the X Factor, and we've really, it's a kind of, we really reduced our understanding of religion and faith to the lowest common denominator. There are so many people out there, believe me, we talk as Muslims, but I'm sure the Reverend will know, that actually are confused between Santa Claus and Jesus. There is that confusion as well.
Right.
And so that people actually believe that during Christmas they're actually celebrating Santa Claus to some extent, which is an absolutely ridiculous thing. What I would say, to just follow this argument, is we need to go back, I think, to basics, back to some kind of, why do we believe? What was the purpose of Jesus's life? Why are we celebrating his birth? What was his relationship? What is the role of Mary in all of this? Because that, I think, accentuates this whole notion of respect for women in any religion, and is a message for all of us. And her pristineness, the fact that she was so innocent, etc., which are things that we commonly share between us. And yet, we Muslims living in a Christian, even religious Muslims and Christians to some extent as well, by I think not being as assertive as Christians could be in this country as Christians, have kind of let go and allowed the commercialization to take over, so that we're now living in a world where, are we celebrating Santa Claus, or are we celebrating the life of, one of our greatest prophets? Sure. Are we celebrating, stockings being filled and gifts and greed and all the rest of it? Or are we celebrating the wonderful diversity and humanity that Christianity has over the centuries imparted as a civilization, as indeed Islam has? We all have our dirty cupboards to clean as well. But I think over and above everything, the commercialization of these things has not been a positive thing. Although it's a very cozy and comforting factor in our lives, in our material lives, I think at the spiritual and the level of where we can really get on as communities, it really has done very little for us.
Right. Although we do just have maybe 2 minutes left, we'll look at the other program in terms of the commercialization and how commercialization have affected the spirituality within Christianity and Muslims as well, when it comes to Eid, so on and so forth. But just briefly, if you can point out to the spiritual aspect of Christmas being shared within the Christian community.
Christmas, as I was saying earlier, Christmas is a festival of connectivity. It connects people.
Right.
As we believe that the Word became flesh, it's mean God became human being to connect people with one another and to connect people with God.
Sure.
But also, on the other hand, there are a lot of traditions during Christmas days. For example, the Holy Family, Joseph, Yusuf, and Mary, they went to Bethlehem, a small town near Jerusalem, to register their names. And Christmas is, as I was saying, this is a festival of connectivity. They went to Bethlehem to register near their names, to connect with their families and to connect with the land of their forefathers. And then Christmas also encourages us to receive unaccepted and unacceptable messages. For example, the message which Mary received from Gabriel, from angel Jibrail, that was quite unacceptable message. You will give birth to a son, you are a virgin. And you understand, in a Western society, now it's to some extent sensible and less problematic, but 2 millenniums ago in Palestine, a virgin is giving birth to a son was really a shame for the family. But very difficult, or the most difficult message given to any woman in the human history could be this message, that you are a virgin and you will give birth to a son. but Mary humbled herself. He received this most difficult message just for the betterment of humanity.
Right.
But
right.
Christmas, on one hand, is very popular in the West, kidnapped, I would say, by the commercial companies. And this is a whole struggle going on. Religion, not just Christmas, religion is, I would say, kidnapped by the commercial companies. For example, this whole Islamic banking and the concept of halal, just concept of halal is not just a meat, but some meat companies probably they want to sell their meat. So the whole concept of halal, the whole Islamic banking, I think we as a religious community, whether we are Muslims or Christians, we need to be very careful about it, that we should not allow commercialism to kidnap our religion, because religion has its own beauty. Christmas, as Kasmi was saying, we should go back and to re-explore the meaning of Christmas, why Jesus came in this world, what was his purpose of life. So we need to explore more on that instead of just having fun, which is not bad, having fun and celebration with one another. So it is becoming more and more important that religion is not kidnapped by commercialism.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you to all our viewers who joined us today to really look into the phenomena of Christmas amongst the Muslims and Christians in the West, and perhaps we would like to look into the commercialization of religious festival of religion in the West in our future shows. Thank you very much, and goodbye from Sahar. Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Islam in the West. The program Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Islam and the West, a program that looks into Western phenomena faced by religious communities living in the West. Obviously, one of the Western reality or phenomena is capitalism, is commercialization of not only lives or people living in the West, but at the same time their religious life, particularly that we find. Christmas, as we are in December, and New Year as well, we tend to see a lot in terms of the commercialization of religious festivals. When Eid comes, the same thing applies. We really want to look at how commercialization have taken over these festivals and it's taken away the spirit that resides within these festivals. In order to look at this, we have invited in our studio Sayyid Nadeem Kazmi, who is the editor of Shia Fair Journal, and who is a human rights advocate, and he has worked with many of the religious institutions in the West, many of the foundations in the West. He has established a Christian Muslim firm in Pakistan as well, helped them establish there, and really looked into the Christian rights in Pakistan. And at the same time, we have someone who looks into the Muslims' rights in UK here, Reverend Rana Khan. Welcome, Reverend. He is a priest in a parish in Harrow, which belongs to Church of England, and also he's a patron of Faith Matters at present, and he has worked with the Archbishop of Canterbury earlier, and at the same time he's an advisory to the Church of England. Welcome, Reverend. Reverend, as we are quite close to Christmas and the New Year, and basically it's in the air, and the gifts and the Boxing Day, and it comes along, which brings about gift exchange. And apparently I came to notice that the Archbishop have warned in terms of giving expensive gifts to each other rather than really celebrating the spirit of giving gifts, not burdening oneself with giving expensive gift, which have become sort of like a fashion these days. How would you look at the spirit or the spirituality of a very important Christian festival being hijacked with commercialization?
I think Christmas, in its very nature, helps communities to incarnate themselves where there is hate, agony, poverty, and a lot of problems that individuals and communities are facing. One of the sayings of Jesus Christ is that on the day of judgment, I will say to the people on my left, go to the hell, because I was hungry and you did not give me food. I was thirsty and you did not give me water. I was homeless and you did not provide me shelter. And they will say, oh Jesus, when you were in this situation, and he said, people who were around you, they were not they were me. And in the same way, I will say to the people on my right, come and have the feast that my Father has made for you. Because I was hungry, you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me water. I was homeless, you gave me shelter. So this, one of the profound Jesus' own meditation, helped Christians throughout the centuries to incarnate themselves where really communities need them. But also at the same time, this has always been a challenge, that people, when they celebrate Christmas, they just celebrate within their class, and they celebrate Christmas with their relatives, and they exchange gifts with those who they receive gifts. So what Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, said, I was in the carol 2 weeks ago in his palace, where he invited his previous staff as well. So I worked there, so I was privileged to go there. And after that, we were expecting food, and then there was announcement there will be no food today, because Archbishop of Canterbury has decided to send this food. And even if you want to contribute, you are more than welcome to contribute. We will send this food to the local food bank. So this is becoming more important to impart the happiness you have to those who don't have. So Christmas is basically the festival to connect those who have with those who don't have. If you allow me, I would also like to share a short story from one of the books of Khalil Gibran Khalil. He wrote a wonderful book, Son of Mary. His title is Son of Mary, and he says, I was coming down from the hills of Lebanon on Christmas Eve, on 24th of December, and I saw a half-naked man shivering because of snow, because of cold. And I asked who you are, and he said, I am Jesus, Son of Mary. And he said, oh Jesus, you are here, and I'm just coming back from a Christmas dinner where we exchanged gifts and we had a lot of fun and celebration. He said, yes, people gather today in my name, but I'm not there. And he said, if someone want to invite you today in your celebration, on Christmas celebration, what's the way forward? And he said, go and celebrate Christmas with the widow, homeless, thirsty, hungry, and people who don't have. So Christmas basically is the festival to connect those who have with those who don't have. I mean, we as a Christian believe that the creator of heavens and earth became a human being to celebrate poverty, to celebrate depravity, to celebrate all the problems which human societies are facing with them. Look, I am Emmanuel, which means God with us. I am with you. I am here with you, to be with you with your problem. So this is the core message of Christmas. We Christians or Muslims or whatever our faith is, Christmas encourages us to go and to celebrate happiness with those who are still victim of pain and agony and segregation and divisions.
Sure, but do we see that sort of being hijacked by the sales, by the gadgets, by what we are looking at these days in terms of just the gift exchange that we have? I mean, obviously the gift exchange, the root of it is to really sharing, but rather it has become more of a
showing your own wealth.
Right, and also expecting that, okay, if you give me a a better gift, and in return you'll get a better one. Otherwise, things like that.
Yes, I think religion as a whole has been kidnapped by this whole commercialism. Not religious, everything. Whether politics, even the media, wherever you go, you can't really survive without the power of commerce.
Sure.
So power of commerce has overcome each and every department of human society and human life. There was a time when spheres of the churches and the gumbads of the mosques were the highest things in any city. But now in London you can see which are the highest buildings, whether these are the churches,
or
mosques or temples. And even in the Middle East, now Burj Al Khalifa in Dubai is much more higher than the spheres of the mosques there. So the power of commerce has really overcome whatever is there in the society, whether that's the religion, whether that's politics. So religion, since we are talking about Christmas is really, I believe, is kidnapped by commercial companies. It is very easy to send Christmas gifts anywhere in the world by sending with shipment companies. You just go and pay your cards. But people living in your own vicinity, people who are homeless, within your area, there is no commercial company who has launched any website to send your gifts to the homeless people. You really need to go out. But I appreciate many churches and mosques. Last week I was in Wilston Green. I was actually in a Pakistani center where some mosques and 14 local churches, they work together to support homeless people and victims of loneliness and all those people who are not able to celebrate life. Religious communities and religious leaders, this is their responsibility to stand up and to do whatever they can to get their own religion and religious festivals from the clutches of commercialism.
Yes, Sayyid Nadeem, how would you approach this sort of taking over of commercialization with religious festivals in general?
I understand where the Reverend is coming from, but I have to say that my own view is, we live in a capitalist economy. We live in an economy that's subject to free market forces. So that I don't condemn, because I think it's a wonderful place that we live in. I think we should be more socially responsible, and to that extent I think that there is unfortunately a drive for greed and wealth, and we're getting away from this notion that there should be perhaps more thought, individual thought on helping our fellow man and woman, as it were. So I think that to some extent I do see that commercialism is a sort of runaway train that has to be controlled. But then again, we live in a free market economy. We live in a capitalist society. We live very much in a secular society. And to that extent, we are comfortable because of that. We are materially wealthy, all of us. We don't have the kind of poverty that exists in some other parts of the world. We are still, despite our relative size as an island nation, still in the top 10 of the world's leading economies in terms of wealth and, if you like, projected power, etc. So there's a lot to be thankful for. We're comfortable because we are materially well off. But in addition to that, I think with that comes responsibility. It comes, I think, at the top of it, social responsibility. And I think, the companies are not going to do that for us, because they're only interested for their own vested interest. They're only interested in making money. Let them do that. I don't think the onus should be on. We might advise them as religious people on having a bit more in terms of ethical policy towards the environment or towards social responsibility. And to their credit, there are some companies that do have specific components within their management structures that do that. I think it's very little in terms of what they could do, but their job is to maintain our country as a wealthy country, as a wealthy nation. Having said that, I think we as communities and as individuals need to take stock of the situation and need to realize that, in fact, commercially, in terms of where our culture is going, the culture of the United Kingdom, we're not going to a very nice place at the moment. You know, we're leading ourselves to selfishness, greed, overindulgence, too much individualism, too much individuality. I think that's dangerous. Less a sense of community. And I think all these things, when you look at them as a sort of concoction of ingredients that come together in a sort of this big pot, I think the production, what it produces is something very nasty to the taste buds. And I don't think that's what we as individuals, as right-thinking human beings, really want for ourselves, okay? That's not the kind of